Hello everyone, my name is Justin and this is a Morey Moment. Today we have Matt Schumacher who's going to talk a little bit about his time here at the Morey Corporation, how he's grown and been an active participant in the culture development here, and his current role as a program manager. So Matt, welcome.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Good to be here.
Yeah. So we were talking beforehand, there's some really interesting parts of your story. You've been here for now...
Yeah, the better part of 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years. And do you want to talk about where you started and where you are now?
Sure. Yeah. So I started kind of my journey here at Morey back in the early 2000s.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually an engineering intern. So I started on the production floor, troubleshooting product, as I was getting my engineering degree. And then after I graduated from college with an engineering degree, then I moved kind of into the development group at that time. And at that time I was kind of touching several products from a validation perspective. So I was, testing products. I was meeting with customers, doing, field installs, things like that, just to kind of learn, what we did. And then from that point, I kind of grew into a program management role. I was just fortunate that, obviously the Morey culture you kind of brought up is where, they see talent and then we try to, give you a path to move up. And I was fortunate enough to be on a path to move into program management. And I probably been doing that for about 15 years since.
Yeah. Looking at where we are now, we have clear VTO, we have systems in place to help us achieve the direction that we're going in. One of the major pillars is enriching people's lives through connected solutions. So I want you to speak a little bit to that, and through your journey, you can go back in history, you can talk about some of the stuff you're working on now, and how do you feel your role is enriching people's lives here at Morey?
Yeah, I think, in my role, it's unique. I'm being kind of at the head of a lot of the development work that we do, the kind of the front line with the customers, really understanding, the customer need, really understanding what their customer's need is, right? And I think that's kind of how we can really win. When we got the customer focus in mind and their end customer, meaning, just people in general, what they need. Mm-hmm. So really listening to that voice on both sides helps us, solve their problems, helps us create products that solve their problems, solutions. Yeah. And I think, in our group, we're constant problem solving, which I think that's an engineer by trade. Is this, you want to solve problems. And that's kind of, I think, how we do it. We do it by solving people's problems and giving them answers.
You'd say that that's a key ingredient in building partnerships with the team internally and then also with the enterprises.
Really just open communication and not closing yourself off to either whether it's internal or external. Just keeping that as your focus. Then that's how you win.
Mm-hmm. Some of the major challenges you faced in your time here. Do you want to talk about maybe one or two of those, and maybe a solution wasn't so obvious to you, and you had to really embrace creativity and lean on the team or lean on someone else in the field?
Yeah, I think there's been a bunch of. Obviously in a program manager's role, mm-hmm. we're dealing with everyone's problems all day, every day. Mm-hmm. We're the one-stop shop to take everyone's problems in and try to help find solutions using the team, mm-hmm. To do that. But I think one that sticks out to me that we talked briefly about this earlier was even a non-electronics product. We did a core drill product for in-flight entertainment customer that overseas flights, and they were having issues, major issues with even plain smoking, and they had major quality issues with their parts. So they came to us with a problem, a unique problem to solve, one that we hadn't worked on in probably almost 30 years. That our current team had to take on and use patents that were 30 years old and try to find ways to make that new again and half the size and twice the amount of cycle mm-hmm. lives. So it was a really challenging project, and I think at the end of the day, we really made a customer satisfied, and we're giving them much better product than they had.
Mm-hmm. Would you say, with the core values that we have currently, right? Commitment to honor, embrace creativity, build partnerships, and own it. Of these, which ones do you speak maybe most to your character? Do you align with most, or do you see implemented most in what you guys do daily?
Well, I think the most important one is own it.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, if you don't have ownership over whatever it is you're working on, you never get to that full potential of what it could be. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of smart people that can, close off, and you never solve the problem. You never get to the end. The ownership to me is the key.
It's the key one.
For me, one of the most exciting things we're working on now is it's our slap and track product. Mm-hmm. It's a small battery powered product. Mm-hmm. Now, from a technology perspective, it's not exciting. Mm-hmm. But what we're trying to do here is we're trying to solve a problem that the industry has had for years, as far as an inexpensive solution that still lasts multiple years, mm-hmm. and is high reliability from a environmental standpoint. I think a lot of devices we see, a lot of devices in the market, they may be able to hit battery life. They may be able to hit, temperature extremes, but they can't put it all in one package, right, for a reasonable price. So I think, with creative battery chemistries, with kind of, cutting edge, new electronic components that we can pick, we're really trying to solve some problems that, have been plaguing that market for years. So, it's kind of fun for us to do.
So some of the challenges that the market has presented us from our partners that you have built the relationships with and you're listening to, what drives the need behind a slap and track device?
Yeah, so typically telematics devices are, maybe easy to hack, if you want to call it. They can either cut them off, they can tamper with them, they can cut a cord, they can remove them. So because they're typically, relatively large. So, operators and customers and users can find them on vehicles. They know they're there, right? So they go looking for them. So I think the idea of having a secondary inexpensive slap and track is that, our customers know that there's a high risk that they're going to be tampered with in some way, right, and disable them. So typically, if someone's going after it, they may try to think they've disabled all of it, right? They take the module out, they think, okay, there's nothing left on this thing. So if you have a small, magnet mount or some easy installed device that can still give you, a one ping a day, even if they disable the current telematics device or the primary one, at least you'll know within 24 hours of where that device still sits, in hopes that you can still recover it. It's kind of, MC5 is, our kind of revision of MC4 that's been in the field, right? So we're updating it for additional power, additional microprocessor power, lower battery power, longer battery life, trying to really help solve, the smart trailer market. So I think that's been one of our positions in the field is, the smart trailer market's kind of the Wild West right now. It's, what's going to interface to each other. The truck side has been kind of defined for many years, right? And it's been evolving. But the trailer side has been completely, every OEM could do whatever they wanted. So we're trying to come up with one solution that could interface to all of the components that could be in a smart trailer solution. So the MC5 is kind of that entry-level product into the trailer market, right? And I think from a Great Dane perspective, it gives them access to intelligence that's kind of been by itself segregated on a trailer, and we can now get that data out. So whether it's a brake control or whether it's door sensing, cargo sensing, things like that, we're now we can be that communication hub that allows us to get data to the cloud or to the tractor, depending on how they go. So the MC5 is kind of that entry level into that, I think, as a good starting point.
The challenges moving forward in smart trailer, is it the increase in the data that we're acquiring? Is it the ability to communicate that data as a processing on the edge? What are some of those challenges that you see there?
The biggest challenge is it's been many different modules over years. Everyone had their own proprietary stuff, whether it was a brake control or whether it was any other kind of sensor on the trailer. There weren't really standards around it. So being able to interface to some of those, everyone had their homegrown solution. So the market has to mature to get, everybody talking in one, protocol, one language, so you can start connecting more devices. So we're kind of integrating each one that we get as a bridge to that. But I think the long-term goal is getting all the devices on a trailer to speak the same way like the tractor currently does today.
It's so crazy, the relationship between the truck and the trailer. It's amazing how much the trailer has lagged behind the technology.
Yep.
Do you want to speak any bit to the challenge of why that may be the case?
Well, I think most of the trailer is a mechanical device, right? So you're trying to outfit a mechanical device and make it electronic, right? Where it currently doesn't exist. So you're pretty much inventing things so for instance, like on a trailer, you got bearings, you got brakes. These are inherently mechanical parts that spin. So how do you get electronics onto those parts and get valuable data off of them that can then be used to, again, for safety? Whether your bearings are too hot, whether your tires aren't inflated, or whether you've got too much cargo in there, too much weight for your trailer to handle. Those are all mechanical things that we're trying to now, and those are typically mechanical vendors and customers that they have no idea about electronics. So you're trying to put together a primary mechanical interface and make it smart. So there's just a lot of challenges around fitting things on and bolting on and making electronics that is rugged enough to handle all those mechanical things that they're trying to sense, right? So it's a really interesting combination of electronics and mechanical that have to come together in a high reliability environment, right? Because you have to be able to last years.
Our relationship of Morey with Caterpillar and having the history that we've had with developing devices that have a certain rugged and component to it, seems like this is all that environment that these electronics are going to have to operate in is going to have to be rugged. It's going to have the support systems in place to be able to deal with climate and the temperature, and then have to deal with water and all of the different weather components that come in there. Do you want to speak a little bit about how technology and the merge of technology and trying to be rugged with these really precise components, that challenge that presents?
Yeah, I mean, the environment we're very comfortable in as a design group. I mean, we've been designing in that environment for 20 plus years. So the concern isn't there. So we have proven ways to seal boxes, to fasten components, picking the right components, laying out PCBs that can last in the environment. So luckily that's kind of our competitive advantage. We've been doing that. We understand that. We've lived that. A lot of our products go into it for many years. We're kind of behind the scenes. So from a market perspective, people didn't even know we exist in a lot of those instances because they're a customer-owned product, right? But we've done the design work. We've done the testing. We understand it. But so from the trailer perspective, it really comes down to integrating, right? How do we integrate what we know and what we've tried and true proven into new applications, right? So our challenge more is an integration challenge, less of a knowing how to design in the environment. So we can take all that expertise and find creative ways to fasten it and get it onto new parts. So that's kind of been more of the challenge for us, less of the environment, more of the how do we physically get this on here? How do we physically run cabling and wires and all kinds of things to get the information out.
Let's talk about your team and the environment that you have and the culture that you have within the group that you work with. Traction has been, and our VTO have all been recently implemented. How do you feel that Traction has allowed you to communicate effectively, making that characteristic of own it become really featured? And then if you want to kind of explain about healthy conflict and dealing with issues as they come up and embracing creativity and solving that.
Yeah, I think, honestly, I was skeptical with Traction at first, because obviously we've done things, a certain way for many years. And so it took me a minute to come around to it, but now I've kind of, for me, it's really been an eye-opener in a lot of ways. I've found that, just the IDS portion of Traction, where you're actually putting issues in front of everybody and actively solving them in meetings, that has been very powerful, in a lot of ways. And engineers, once the information's out there, they want to fix the problem. They want to go after it, but finding good, easy ways to communicate it and log it and keep track of it and being able to assign, actions straight from it, from specific issues has been, I think, a real big win for all of us. I mean, people can see it right away. It's always in front of them. They can't lose it. Their to-dos are all right in front of them. So, things that might have fallen, kind of swept under the rug, or not swept under the rug, just lost or, fallen out of the way now are just constantly in front of you all the time. So I think it's actually, once we found out how to use it and how people react to it and how to use it better, it's really become a very powerful tool for us.
So you've spent your entire career with Morey.
Yeah, pretty much.
What led you to buy in? I mean, why Morey and why have you stayed here? And
for me, it's always been the products and the customers. I've been here almost, a little over 20 years pretty much. And the types of products, the types of customers we've had, I mean, there's not many places you can go where you can talk to all these high profile customers like we have. The big OEMs, from big OEMs in all of the industrial spaces to, telecom a little bit to, in-flight entertainment, there's very few places you can go that can give you that experience. And just, I've been fortunate enough to at one point or another work with many of these customers. And, they always kept me excited, always wanting more. I've had products, that we've worked on that I've seen on the Discovery Channel. So it's always been something to keep me excited and interested. So for me, it's been the products and the customers that I've loved. And it never got old to me. So for me, I just kept wanting more.
Yeah. Looking at the current industry where we are, where are some of those challenges that a young engineer could be excited about, and where would they want to be involved in the IoT trend?
I think it's easy to get blinded by the flashy lights, in certain companies, but really, really understanding the products, like I said, back to the customers again, very few places you can go where you have this much ownership over things. So if you're someone that really wants to own it, like the values say, I mean, this is the place for you because you can own as much as you want. And you could go to some companies that are flashy, but you might be stuck in small, little pieces or here and there. You can't really own anything. Where Morey's definitely a place where, we're a small enough group, we're, constantly collaborating to where if you want to own more, you can do more. and that's been if I could give anyone advice is don't get blinded by the some of the flashy lights. Find something that you can really own and help.
Yeah. What about Dana and Ryan really attracts you to where we are and where we're going?
Yeah, well, I think they live that. Ryan's worked his way up, in a lot of ways similar to what I have done here. And it just goes to show that he's put the time in and he's owned everything he's done on the way up, and it's inspiring to me to be the same way.
Yeah, it's a rare situation for someone to spend their 20 years in a career
Right.
now. It's not as normal, and so I'm fascinated by you coming in, especially at the very beginning, and then being able to find the opportunities along the way and grow in your role, and where you stand today. It's very impressive to me.
Yep. I mean, it's been a great ride for me,
Mhm.
and I hope it continues to move up. And again, it's just a unique place to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Some of the parts of your job, your day to day, what's exciting to you? Why still do exactly what you do every day?
I think it's the unknown.
Mm-hmm.
In my job, like I said, I'm a problem solver by nature.
Mm-hmm.
And and working with, so it's the people and the problem solving. I never know what's going to happen from day to day. I could have a list of things I know have to be done, and I can guarantee at the end of that day it will be different than when I started.
Yeah.
And it's been that way for 20 years, and
Yeah.
that's I wouldn't be comfortable just sitting there doing the same thing every day. I like the challenges.
And you were saying earlier that you're dealing with all the problems from everybody else.
Yeah.
And the way engineers think and being approached with this problem and needing a solution, it's incredible to watch how you guys work and go through those things.
Someone's not going to be happy with the product at the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was your customer that asked for it, whether it was your customer didn't know how much it was going to cost, or whether we didn't define it well enough. Change management is key to customer satisfaction, because there's been times where if you don't manage change well, that at the end of the project and you're looking at what you got versus what you asked for, if it's different or it's not meeting expectation or someone didn't have the correct expectation, that kills programs. It also kills products.
These past couple of years have had a lot of challenges, one of which being working from home and the COVID pandemic. How were you guys able to maintain that connection with each other and clarity on the projects, not being able to be face to face?
Yeah, it was a really unique challenge for us, and especially in a development group that has all the different engineering disciplines, and most engineers they live in the lab. So how do you then take engineers that have obviously been 20 years in their current roles or other roles similar, and who've never worked from home, who hardly take vacation time? They're forced to take their vacation time by the end of the year, and get them to try to work from home and connect and still be integral with the team. So it was a lot of work to relocate lab equipment, set people up with laptops that have never had laptops. It was teach them how to use Zoom that have never used Zoom. All the tools had to be remote, and teaching them just all a new way to do a job that they've been doing the same way for 20 years. So it was a really unique challenge, and there were several individuals in our group that I thought, man, there's no way this is going to work. There's no way we're going to get them to be able to do this reliably. And sure enough, within 2 to 3 months, it's like things were humming almost as if they were in the office. I mean, and then obviously with people starting to come back to the office, people found ways to work efficiently and do it. So now it's been a really nice kind of hybrid model to be able to still give people some freedom and flexibility, but still keep the speed and nimbleness and communication that we have to carry out our projects. So it was a really unique situation that I never thought we could get to the point we're at now. That now it seems like I don't know how you go back to it again.
Yeah, being able to take everything home with you, and that's what I try to think about from an engineer perspective, is actually getting your hands on devices and being able to perform. And you can't have the environment has to be perfectly right for you to be able to deal with some of these devices. So that is a unique challenge for you guys in your specific spot.
Lots of driving devices from people's houses to people's houses, and it's fortunate we're all local.
Yeah.
So you could get something to somebody by tomorrow. Okay, we'll drive it over there after work today. We'll get it over there, and it was unique, definitely.
Yeah, some of the supply chain challenges that have been presented to you guys in your current role and some of the problems that you're addressing, how has this impacted you, and then what's kind of the way that you've been working through this? Yeah,
so that's probably one of our biggest impacts right now is supply chain. Right now, from a design perspective, we were always used to be only worried about, okay, what's the best part we can get? What features does it have? When's it coming out? When can I get it? When can I start shipping it? Now it's, I need to find the part that I can ship this year. So even for our new developments, finding several key components to launch this year has been a real challenge. So between escalating on the supply chain side, but also trying to design in alternatives. So we're now trying to design in alternatives for parts that are pretty key that we never would have had to before. So it's been really challenging for us from a design perspective to, multi-footprint parts or, have two different SKUs where we wouldn't normally have, to be able to use alternates if they come in. So right now, if ops can get a part, they pick this one. If ops can get this part, they pick this one. And it's, we've had to do almost double the work in a lot of areas to be able to handle that.
And be able to prepare for what you're going to have to last second decide.
Yeah, and it could change tomorrow.
Yeah.
I mean, literally this week I'm getting new parts that we can't get. So it's like every week, every day that now it's, hey, what else can I put in here? Okay, so it's all hands on deck and try to find fight the next fire, find the next thing that we can put in there.
Embracing creativity in those solutions.
Very
right?
much so.
Yeah.
And it, from the design side all the way through supply chain, everyone has a piece of it. It's not you can't throw it over the wall and say, okay, well, you go build this now. It's just not that easy anymore.
Incredible. So if you want to maybe speak to some of the interesting challenges that have been presented and overcoming those.
I think the some of the more interesting challenges around collecting data from assets is really around the type of data and how to get it. So OEMs and from equipment to trucks to cars to you name it, any kind of asset, every OEM has a certain way to do it, and it changes from year to year. So what we may have launched last year now all of a sudden doesn't connect to this year's vehicle. So it's from the design group's perspective, constantly trying to stay up with the trends in the market for different communication protocols, different data types, different sensors to go get. So for us, it's our responsibility, and kind of where Raj is going is how kind of see the future a little bit. So how do we future-proof the device to be able to just make software changes to get what we need? So you don't have to go out and touch assets, because once an asset goes, you can't really get to it again, right? So it's finding ways to make the hardware configurable enough or adaptable enough to be able to in a year from now, okay, there's new things out there. Let's do a software update, and now we can unlock those features, right? So it's keeping the products future-proofed as much as we can.
One of the major trends that's coming along is I guess it's not really just like a singular moment, but with all of this data and the application of machine learning and artificial intelligence on that data, processing on the edge has become something that's the definite direction. And would you say the devices and stuff that you work on currently, what are some of the features that are important that will facilitate this drive into the future on this trend?
Yeah, well, some of the newer designs we've worked on that aren't commercially available yet are using some of the really latest microprocessor technologies. So there's a ton of memory, there's a ton of compute capability on them. So again, it's kind of you have to have devices that can do all the compute locally, or devices that can they rely on the servers to do that, right? So we have some new designs that are using really cutting edge parts, but again, those are really expensive modules. So it depends on the cost point the customer is trying to hit, and what kind of data plan they have, or what kind of asset, how often is he able to connect, how quick they have to respond. So we have to have solutions that can handle all of those. Because something that's just a one ping a day versus something that's constantly monitoring an asset for a problem, or it has to move it, or it has to control it in some way. Those are really different kinds of devices. So with Raj's help is kind of understanding the market, and then from our group's perspective, how do we give the market what they need to handle all of those cases?
I think collecting data and the ability to set thresholds, and that's when things are outside of the norm, be alerted, is a major asset to businesses. And that's one of the themes with telematics. It's not just a device for device's sake. If you have the right software to back it up, you're lowering total cost of ownership for the life of the asset. So when you look back on some of the applications that you've applied, what are some success stories for customers in the actual applying of the technology?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest ones we've had are from theft recovery. Obviously, asset theft is big, in the rental market, and we've had several testimonies from customers where our devices saved hundreds of thousands of dollars in assets that went dark. They had to go. They can now recover them. They would have just been stolen. So, stolen asset is really good. I think trouble codes, DTCs on over the road trucks, also a big deal. I mean, and if they can prevent an accident because of a trouble code that we caught and we sent it out, and they could stop that truck for maintenance before it ended up hurting somebody, I think the safety aspect is the biggest part of it.
Would you want to talk about the data that comes off the truck and the CAN bus and all that, and how it impacts operations?
I think there is so on a vehicle bus there are standard what they call messages, and you can get some general diagnostic information from it. Well, fortunately, there's customers that there's certain customers that specialize in getting the what they call OEM specific data elements. So those are where a lot of the proprietary stuff goes. So that's where a lot of the real meat for diagnostics sits. So over the just general CAN bus, you can get certain data points that everybody can get. Right. So until you partner with certain companies that can obviously work are in closer with the OEMs to get the real stuff, you can do more data analysis on. Right. The general stuff like water temperature and things like that, they help, but until you get fuel pressures and the lower level parameters that they don't just generally broadcast, that's where you really can unlock the diagnostic features.
Are there any breakthroughs in the access to that information that you see that have really been able to impact our total impact on the device as the telematics device?
Well, I think the finding partners that can have access to more of them, right? Because there was several partners you could choose that have access to maybe just a GM specific or just a Ford specific, just for example. Finding one that has access to all of those that you can dip into one library allows us to scale, right? We can scale depending on, whatever device we're using it on. So you're not just having to go integrate, because all that's an integration in software that you have to take their stuff, integrate it in. So if you're going to 4 different vendors to try to get as many codes as you can, well, then we have to integrate all those. So the cost, the time to market, the complexity, it's large. So, luckily we've been able to find vendors that can now support many of those under one library that we have to integrate, right? So it helps us get quicker to market. It helps us stay. They're constantly updating from year to year, so we'll be able to update from year to year. It's a lot better to partner with somebody like that.
Yeah. One of the things that I do want to ask you is if there's certain members on your team that you wanted to highlight for any reason.
I work with the entire group.
Yeah.
So I'm not a rah-rah for. I love to give kudos to people who do great work, and we have a lot of people that do great work.
Yeah.
And I love the team that I work with. I think they're all valuable contributors. I think, unfortunately, with the way the market is right now and the Great Resignation, we're at a level that we've never been at is from a size perspective. So the key players that are left are all, extremely critical.
Right.
And they all, are marching in the same direction. So I feel like we're at a stage right now in our group till we're getting ready to grow again. Obviously with some partnerships that we have now, it's going to open up some doors for us to grow the group and kind of get back some of that we had. So I think for me, it's an exciting time because I think we are going to have opportunities that we haven't had previously, whether it's bringing on staff, whether it's, a path for people that are here now to move up and take spots that were vacant, and, a lot of new customer excitement, partnership excitement. So I think there's a lot of, pluses we have going our way right now.
Yeah. Is there unique characteristics that you're looking for from the young people that are coming up, more skill oriented maybe than just character traits? But
yeah, well, I think a lot of the engineers that I've worked with over the years, from a skills perspective, a lot of them have similar skills. Right? I think for me, my perspective always comes down to the fit and the own it. Right? I think there's a lot to be said for that. I mean, you can train a lot of things, right? But you can't train, own it, and fit. So from my perspective, it's the problem-solving mentality. It's the, owning everything that they touch. And I think looking at a resume, it's really hard to get that. So from our perspective now is how do we get that team of own it people that we can rely on to take us, forward. That's, in my opinion, that's in a lot of ways just as important as the actual skills and background.
I agree. I do want to get a little bit more out of your history and your time here, because I know that's one of the things that Ryan really wants to establish in the next kind of vision for the company is having more people be able to buy into a vision and stick with a company for 10, 15, 20, 30 years, an entire career. bringing back that version of the American dream is something that he has
Yeah.
talked about in private with me, and I'm sure publicly with others. But that part of your journey and finding some of the root and what you bought into here and the opportunities you had.
Yeah, I think in the beginning, though, one of the things that, there was a very, if you want to call it family-driven company, when I started here. And, even Mr. Morey himself would come down and shake everyone's hand on the production floor. He'd walk the entire building, every week. And that to me, said a lot. I come from a large family. And, it just felt like that to me from day one when I was here. That, they accepted me that way, they treated me that way, and they treated everybody that way. So, that family atmosphere coupled with, really good customers and really good projects to work on, it always felt good to me. I think there's a lot of people aren't used to that. So I think sometimes when you come in an environment, it can be intimidating, like any family could be. But, once you live it and you love it, you end up just growing relationships with people that you never really, imagined would happen. Right. So I think it's kind of a lot of ways, there's still that core that still is there. And I do believe that Ryan is trying to, allow people to have that again. I think, there was several years through many challenging years where, it wasn't as prevalent maybe as it should be. But I do believe that Ryan is trying that. And conversations I've had with him, and promoting that and feeling that again, I think it makes me more excited to get back to that again.
Well, yeah, so I really appreciate your time today, and thank you for your participation. This has been a Morey moment, and it's
Thank you very much.
been a pleasure.